Now I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Sjir Hoeijmakers. So he's the CEO of Giving What We Can, the global organization promoting effective giving and the 10% pledge. They've recently celebrated reaching 10,000 people who have taken that 10% pledge. Yeah, it's worth celebrating. Sjir has a background in impact evaluation and nonprofit entrepreneurship, and he served as Giving What We Can's Director of Research before coming on to lead the organization. Sjir is a longtime pledger himself as well, and currently donates 50% of his income to different high-impact charities. The Giving What We Can community has been really meaningful to me, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about this from Sjir. So please join me in welcoming Sjir Hoeijmakers to the stage.
Imagine. Tomorrow, we hold the first ever global referendum. On the ballot is a 10% tax to solve global problems. With the proceeds, we would once and for all eliminate extreme poverty, replace factory farming with alternative protein solutions, and prevent the next pandemic from happening. With the remainder of the money, we'd accelerate clean energy innovation. We'd coordinate between countries to reduce the risk of nuclear war. And we'd fund research into making AI beneficial for humanity as a whole. What would you vote? Quite sure everyone basically in this room would vote yes to this, for this referendum. And I myself certainly would. More importantly, though, I think the vast majority of people in the world would vote yes if they got a choice like this. If they knew everyone else would do this as well, would also have to pay such a tax, and it would solve these world problems. Most people in the world don't want there to be extreme poverty or needless suffering of animals or a pandemic happening. And I think also most people would be more than willing to contribute a little bit to banish these types of problems to the history books. So, in other words, if it was already normal to contribute 10% to solve these problems, I think not many people would object to that norm. My organization, Giving What We Can, is trying to build towards that world with our 10% pledge, which is in a way the voluntary equivalent, you could say, of a 10% tax to solve world problems. Recently, like Julia just said, we hit the 10,000 10% pledger mark, which is super exciting. And I want to thank everyone in this audience who is a part of that. I want to have one big more cheers, because it's just a really great moment. It is worth celebrating, in particular because currently this is not the norm. It's not normal to give 10% of your income to highly effective charities. And so the first few people who do this need some courage, need to do this, to get there. It's really exciting we have 10,000 people, but we're very far removed from that world I just sketched, where we have this global referendum and we might actually have this 10% tax. So, as a CEO of Giving What We Can, I often ask myself, how do we build a global norm? How do we get to a world in which, in this case, 10% is given to solving world problems? And I think this is not just relevant for Giving What We Can and for my job and for spreading effective giving at a 10% pledge. It's relevant for all of us involved in the project of effective altruism. We need to be able to build norms to solve global problems. For example, within our movement, we need to build norms of collaboration and sharing resources to make sure we are more than the sum of our parts. Beyond our movement, we need to make it more normal for people to dedicate their careers to solving global problems. And even beyond that, to solve global problems at a global level, really, we need to build norms like people getting vaccinated or voting in governments that actually want to solve these global problems. So I'd like to share with you what I've learned so far in how we can all build and contribute to building global norms. This is me 10 years old, just heading into my final year of primary school. I was a nerd, for sure. You can see me holding the third volume of Lord of the Rings in my hands there. I also love board games, but I was a very shy boy. I was sometimes bullied. I wasn't very popular. It wasn't necessarily the most pleasant time of my life. And in particular, I remember one night that year where we had a school party at our primary school building. And I was there, and I remember there was a girl I really liked in my class, but I didn't dare asking her. I didn't dare inviting her to dance with me at that party. As the night progressed, though, I did finally find the courage to do something else. And this was getting onto the dance floor myself, joining my classmates on the dance floor. And I really found out, for the first time ever, I found out I enjoyed this. I enjoyed dancing with other people. Now, I'm sharing this story because I think dancing and a dance floor can actually be a really powerful metaphor for building norms. I like to think about building norms as filling up the dance floor for doing good in many ways. And so I'll share a video with you that will give you some of those early lessons that I draw from dance. All right, so this video makes me want to dance a little bit. I mean, you just saw a norm being built, right? You saw people starting to dance and then running to the dance floor together, and ultimately there was a norm of dancing on the field rather than just sitting and watching. And I think this video, for me, illustrates the first of three things I think we can all do to build norms and dance. It's that we need to dare to do the actual thing we want to build a norm around. Someone needs to start. Someone needs to be the first to move forward. It was scary for me to join my classmates on the dance floor, but it required much more courage for these first three dancers you just saw to step onto the dance floor and be the first to do this, to be the dancers there. And otherwise, the party would have never gotten started. It becomes easier when more people join, and it becomes easier for others to join in then as well. But most of us like to dance, but we only like to dance when we see other people are doing it already as well. Similarly, even though I'm now the CEO of Giving What We Can, it took me 4 years to move from learning about effective giving and the 10% pledge to being surrounded by people who had taken the 10% pledge to then finally taking the 10% pledge myself, to find the courage to do that myself. And so I think even today, like I just said, with 10,000 people who have done this, it might be a bit of a norm in this community, but it's still not normal to give 10%, and it still requires us to be among those first three dancers to step onto the dance floor and really dare to set a new example and dare to be a norm. When a movement is still small, when a norm still isn't built, we need to dare to do the thing first. Secondly, we need to share. After daring to do the thing, the best thing we can do is share that we're actually doing this thing. This is obvious for the dance example, because if those people hadn't danced in public, nobody would have been able to join. They could have danced in private, but nobody knew a dance party was going on. It's maybe less obvious, but no less true for building norms like effective giving. I, myself, when I took the 10% pledge, I first saw this really as a personal commitment for my money to do a lot of good. And I didn't really think much about sharing it with others. It was only a few years later when I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Robin, you see here, who told me that she had taken the 10% pledge, that this changed for me. Because she didn't just tell me that she took the pledge, she told me she'd done it based on having conversations with me and just me sharing why I was doing this. And it was really rewarding to learn about this for the first time, but it also really finally made clear to me the power of this multiplier of impact we can have just by sharing what we like to do and what we want to stand for. Before that, I had theoretically known this, but someone doing this was quite profound for me. And the funny thing is, there wasn't any cost involved, really. All I'd done was just have a really good conversation with a friend of mine, shared something that was meaningful to me, and we'd actually deepened our connections together. And it had brought this new multiplier of impact. So for me, this really illustrates, again, how cost-effective it is to basically share what we're doing to multiply our impact. Third, we can invite. After daring, sharing, we can invite people proactively to supercharge the multiplier we have through sharing. For me, this also started with Robin, because after Robin had told me this, I suddenly thought, wait, what if I would actually do this more proactively? What if I would ask my friends and family to consider this, to pledge and give effectively? I set myself an ambitious goal. Within 1 year, I wanted to inspire 20 people to take a 10% pledge or a trial pledge, just friends and family around me. I was very determined about this, and like everyone in the effective altruism movement, I then built a spreadsheet. I mapped out all my family and friends, forecast what the probability was that I would pledge, and I tracked my progress as I went. But I also knew I needed to get more creative about this than just this. And so when it was my birthday that year, I thought of a new birthday gift. Instead of asking people to pledge or to give to a charity, I asked them to have a 30-minute conversation with me about effective giving, to just take 30 minutes of that time to talk about effective giving. And as you can see here, a lot of people obliged. They subscribed on the blackboard, which was hanging in the party. These conversations I had, there weren't conversations me pitching the pledge to people. There were conversations where I asked people, what do you think of effective giving? Do you know what it is? And then we would have a conversation about what it is. Do you think it's a good thing, this 10% pledge thing? And then, have you ever considered it for yourself? What is blocking you right now? Can I learn from your example? And the really nice thing was, all my friends, really all of them, without exception, and they weren't necessarily people involved in effective altruism or effective giving. They were just high school friends, people from throughout my life. They all thought this was a good thing. Maybe it's not too weird, but it's a good thing if people give 10% to highly impactful charities. When I asked them, what about you? Are you interested in this? Most of them were, but it was just them never having been invited before. It was sometimes one or two small blockers, like a misunderstanding about what it meant to pledge 10%. Do you have to give every year or not? Those kinds of things. We talked about that. And in the end, I had 11 conversations with the people on this whiteboard, and 6 of those ended up taking a 10% or trial pledge in that next year. And it was just such a fun thing to do and a rewarding thing. Again, also deepened my connection to my friends. And so it was just a really nice discovery. So I recommend if you ever want to try a new birthday present, try it out. By the end of the year, I tried various things like this and ended up inspiring 37 people to take a trial or 10% pledge as a kind of side hobby. This wasn't my job. This was just something that really was fun and rewarding to do, because once you get going, you get very excited and you want to share it with others. And it becomes easier because you have more people who are already on the dance floor, and they know each other as well. And so I think this really illustrates this experience, the power of inviting, not pitching, not persuading, but just inviting people to consider something, to supercharge the multiplier of sharing. Let's apply some of this in practice. As you know, the theme of this talk is dancing. And so I'm going to ask you all to please, joking, we're going to dance after the conference to celebrate what we've done. We will dance, don't worry, but not now. I'm going to ask you to silently think for 30 seconds about a norm that you would like to see built. This could be effective giving, but definitely doesn't have to be. It could be something like voting in a high-stakes election, or changing your diet, or maybe even just supporting someone who's working on a really high-value project in this community. Something that you think more should happen of. Think about a norm for the next 30 seconds, and then we'll hear a gong, and we'll be back on the stage. I'll put on a timer. Great. Thank you. Hopefully also this is a little bit quiet in this very busy day. The next thing I'm going to ask you is now think of one dare, share, or invite action related to the norm that you've just thought of. So if you're not doing the thing yourself yet, think about what you could do. If you are already doing it, but you're not sharing it, think about one person you could maybe share it with. If you're already sharing it, but not inviting people, think about one person you could maybe invite. Please take out a notebook or phone and write down one dare, share, or invite action in the next 30 seconds. Amazing, thank you. Now, because we've been talking about sharing, the last thing we'll do together is sharing your example or your intention with your neighbor. So in the next minute, I'm going to ask you each to take 30 seconds, and there will be a gong in between, to share this intention you have with the person sitting next to you. And so please look around you, who is that person you're going to talk to? And there we go. Amazing, thank you. So much enthusiasm and so many norms perhaps being built. I hope you'll walk away from this session with at least one, and maybe now two, intentions to build a norm or to contribute to building a norm. And I really think it can be that simple. We're here with about 300 people in this room, and that's quite a powerful first step towards building norms, right? It's like a couple of people on the dance floor we have here. So I hope this session will help you start that at least. As for this little guy, myself as a 10-year-old, who didn't dare asking or inviting the girl he liked onto the dance floor, 23 years later, he finally found the courage to ask the most beautiful, smartest, and most altruistic person at a party onto the dance floor. And he's celebrating his anniversary with her today. Right here. True story. Actually, this is how we got together. I invited her onto the dance floor, and that's why it was together. But yeah, today I'd like to invite you to a different kind of dance than this. I'd like to invite you to the dance floor for doing good. Together, we can dare to dance and do things that we think need to be done. We can share what we're doing with others, and we can invite others to join us. Together, this way, we can build norms that can help solve global problems. Together, let's fill up the dance floor for doing good. Thank you.